Today I'm talking with Kevin Quinn.
How are network marketers like us supposed to rank, advance, and build a downline without begging our friends and family or having supermodel good looks? My mind was blown when I realized that the top network marketers aren't calling their friends and families to invite them to lame hotel meetings and in-home meetings. I've spent the last 2 years learning from and dissecting the system that top earners in the industry use. Follow me on the journey as I continue to learn and implement the top marketing tips and strategies to grow my downline. This is Sarah Peterson, and you're listening to MLM Marketing Explosion.
I'm so excited for you guys to meet him. You guys should definitely be following him on Facebook. He's Kevin Steven. Go find him. Go check him out. This guy is amazing. He knows how to connect and he knows how to sell, which are two things that are really cool. I know when I first started, I was going to say the game. It's more of a science than a game, but you have to know the rules if you want to win. And when I started in this, it was like, I got to know how to do this, and I got to know how to do that, and I got to know how to do this. And I think one of the most amazing things that I ever learned was I don't have to know how to do it. I just have to know who knows how to do it.
Right.
And, I think this is absolutely, Kevin is a smart guy. I'm going to let him tell you his background, but he's got an background with apps and software and all this cool stuff, but he's a connector. So when he came up with ideas, he just made it happen. He connected with people and he took a chance and he got brave. And I think this is where it's kind of cool as you guys are coming up with offers, so to speak, is that if you have a great idea, go find people that can help you execute it and either pull them in as a team like Kevin does, or go find all those pieces that can kind of help you build it and help you stay focused. But without further ado, Kevin, you got to tell me your backstory. I know we were talking a little bit beforehand, and for those of you guys that buy the audios, that's going to be thrown in. But just all of this background and how you got here, and really cool story.
Yeah. Wow. Well, like I was telling you before, I spent 25 years in the tech space, working for hardware and software companies. So, manufacturing companies, running sales teams, whether that's direct reports or 1099 employees, whatever it might be. So, running these sales teams and outselling, hitting the streets. Sold a lot of product over the years, mainly, hardware and software focused, and had a blast doing it. And then about 5 years ago, the market turned, everything was going down. A lot of these companies were experiencing layoffs. I was laid off in 2009, November 2009, 2 days before Thanksgiving. I was wrapping up a trade show in Southern California. My boss, the VP of the company, had flown out. So I knew something was up. He flew out to San Diego for a trade show 2 days before Thanksgiving from Baltimore, Maryland. So he sends me a message in the morning, says, hey, I'm out here. I'm in the hotel. Let's meet in the lobby in the morning. I was like, okay. So I'm sales director for this company. And I was like, perfect. So I walked down. I was nervous because I knew something was up. I had his Christmas gift sitting in a bag. So we meet down the lobby in a little area. And I handed him his Christmas present. He goes, what's this? I said, it's your Christmas present. He's like, oh my gosh. Oh. And we got along great. We're still friends. To this day, we're still friends. The decisions that were made from the top were eventually made for him. About 90 days later, he was let go as well. But they let some of the key people go because, you've got a company that's doing extremely, extremely well in our space. And, they wanted growth. So in the process of growing, they brought in, so my boss was the VP of sales. I was the sales director. They brought in a new person above him, the senior vice president of sales. So president, my boss, they brought in a middleman. This guy was brought in to axe everybody. Eventually, that's how it came down. But we didn't know that. So they brought in this big name guy from Dell, brought him over, didn't know squadoosh about our market. Here's a guy that let me go, that a bunch of other people go, eventually let my VP go. And in the process of doing so, we were small at the time. Well, we were growing. We were about a $260, $270 million a year company, growing. And 3 years later, they sold it in a bankruptcy auction for $1.5 million. But this guy ruined it. This knucklehead from Dell came on board and ruined this company. But in the process of it all, he was kind of the catalyst to a lot of different things in my life. So not only did I lose my job with this great company where I was making amazing money at the time, lost my job. I had a 2-year non-compete. I could not compete against this company in any way for 24 months after I lost my job. That was part of holding stock in the company. This is how corporate America works. So 2 years, I can't compete against them. And literally for 2 years, I could not take a job in the industry that I had worked in for 25 years. So I'm trying to figure out a way to do something, to create something. I finally took a job as a VP of sales in a manufacturing company in Utah. A month into it, the attorneys send letters. I'm out. He's in violation of non-competes, yada, yada, yada. But here's this company that I had to honor a 24-month non-compete on, who then pulled another stinky on me. I'm divorced. In my divorce, I gave my ex-wife everything. Doesn't matter what it was, she got it all. I walked away with my next paycheck and my company stock. They dissolved my company stock. Yes. So, in November 2009, I lose my job. 90 days later, I get a note from the attorneys saying my stock has been dissolved. The value of the company has fallen below a certain threshold. They bought it all back at zero. So they took all my stock back from me. So literally 90 days after I lost my job, 2 years after my divorce, I had no job. I had no company stock. My retirement was gone. I mean, I had my 401k, but outside of that, everything that I had walked away from in the divorce, I no longer had. Didn't have the paycheck, didn't have the stock. And for 2 years, I lived off of savings and my 401k, cash 401k. Well, you know what happens with that? You cash out 401k, you eventually have to pay the tax man. So if you pull $70,000 out of your 401k to live on, you get 50% of that. I'm trying to remember. I pulled out 70, I got 50% of that. And then also on top of that, they took another piece of it in taxes and penalties, because you get not only taxed on it, you get hit with a penalty for taking your 401k early. So, but that's what I had to do to survive. So over that 5 years, I created and evolved and got into other markets, and got into commercial insurance of all things. I got licensed as a commercial insurance agent. While in that position, I was listening to people. They were telling me ideas, or not ideas, they were telling me problems they were having with the insurance industry. And in those conversations, I came up with an idea for a software. And out of that, we created this company called Exact Plus. So 2.5 years ago, we launched the idea for this company called Exact Plus. And now we have this software out that helps people remedy the issues that these contractors were dealing with at the time with their insurance carriers. That software turned into our next software, into our third software company. We now have 4 projects in the works. So we'll have, in the end of a year from now, we'll have 7 softwares that are out there right now that are being used, app-based software as a service products. And so that's how we got started into software. An idea that I had turned into a software, and here we are today. But we weren't hitting our market with some of these products, and we wanted to figure out how we're going to find our market. And we got introduced to a company in Eagle, Idaho that does sales funnels. And they introduced us in the process of all this. We didn't go with them. They extended a scope of work to us. We waited too long to sign it. By the time we signed it and got it back to them, they were already so big, they didn't need us. They were like, we've grown exponentially in 60 days. We can't take you on as a client. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. That sucks. Now what? So in the process of all that, they passed on us, and we had to learn what it is they were doing. We got introduced to other agencies, and we got introduced to this company called ClickFunnels. And I'm like, ClickFunnels? Here's the funny thing. If I go 1 mile that way and 3 miles that way, I'm at the ClickFunnels office. I'm 4 miles from the ClickFunnels office. And I'm like, what the heck is ClickFunnels? And so, here we are 6-7 months later. I now know what a ClickFunnel is, or a sales funnel. And I've learned a lot over that time period on how to go after your audience online, that targeted digital marketing. So that's kind of, tech space, 5 years of what the hell, and 6 to 7 months of now I know what this is, and it's still what the hell. I'm still trying to figure all this out. But like you said, surround yourself with smart people, and that's what I've done. I've surrounded myself with some really smart, giving people, and that's helped in this whole process.
I love your story, because I hate your story, but I love your story.
Right.
Because you didn't let that stop you. You actually went out and totally and completely reinvented yourself. And and that's not an easy place to be.
Especially for an old guy. Yeah,
You're not
I'm an
even
old
that
guy
old, but
in a
yeah.
new world. And so you have to evolve. That's the thing is you have to evolve. You have to figure out new ways to do old things.
Right, which is so inspiring. And I think my other favorite lesson from yours is or one of them. There's so many things to pull out, but I love not love that you waited on the one thing and you got told no. And I think sometimes in this as you're building these businesses, it's really easy to wait. Like you get this idea and you wait and you wait and you
Right,
wait, and
right,
sometimes
right.
when you come back to do it, it's too late. It's like
Mhm.
you're out of the game. And so I think that's cool.
You have
Um
to act fast.
yeah,
Buy
well,
now, buy now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Buy
exactly.
now. You have to buy now.
You do. At some
Like you
point you
said,
have to pull the trigger.
yeah, you wait. People ask me all the time, especially in tech, when's the right time to buy? Right now is the right time to buy. If you're waiting for that next new iPhone to come out, by the time you get to that next new iPhone that's released, you're ready to buy, and then you step in, and then you hear, oh wait, there's another one coming, and it's going to have this feature. So you're always waiting for the next greatest thing to come out, and you never pull the trigger, or you eventually pull the trigger and you have regret. You have to pull the trigger, and you've got to do it now. I mean, you really do. You see it all the time. Countdown timers, buy now, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that stuff I think is fluff. But that being said, the right time to buy is now, because what point are you at in your life, in your business career? And how are you going to get to that next 90 days, the next 30? How are you going to get to tomorrow? I mean, if you don't act on it today, you're going to be like me. You're going to wait 60 days. This company could have done some amazing things for our software company. I know they could have. But we waited 60 days to get a response to them. And then they told us no. So 6 months later, I'm not working with these guys. But they're doing amazing things for their other clients. And I could have been one of their clients, but I didn't act on it at the time. I think eventually this will all shake out. Things will work out. I met some amazing people along the way. I've met Blake Newbar. Blake's been great. I didn't mention them, but I met some really cool people out of Minnesota. Larlin and Andrew Newman. They're awesome. They're affiliated with the ClickFunnels group. We still have intent on working with them with our software stuff. Met Steve Larson. Steven Larson, but he's now known as Steve Larson. That's the new identity he's taken on. So he's now the Steve Larson. So I've met a lot of great people. I met the folks that we've partnered with over at Side Hustle. I think they're all amazing. Love them all. So over the 6 or 7 months that I was told no from this marketing agency, I've met some really cool people who can help us tell our story, I think, the same way. They really can. But now I've got some great relationships with them, and I think that lends itself to a better relationship for us moving forward.
So I got to know because I think one of the scariest things sometimes is pulling the trigger, because it's like, what if I screw up?
Right.
But, which I'm not one for, make more mistakes to make more mistakes.
Right.
I know, that's kind of a cliche
A lot
statement.
of people are risk adverse.
Right.
They truly are.
And you've got to, at some point, you just got to jump. But I love that a lot of the people you connected with and pulled together are bigger names, or people that on the outset you'd go, holy crap, I can't talk to them. How did you have feelings like that, or how did you get over it?
Yeah, that's the beauty. I'm gonna tell you right now, here's what I learned a long time ago in sales. Actually, I started in sales at 12 years old, my first paper route. At 12, I delivered, it was called The Advertiser. It went to everybody in my route. Everybody got one. Then I migrated. I moved up to this company called the Idaho Statesman, like the premier newspaper back in the day. And this one was a subscription-based service. So I had two things. I was delivering to current clients. So when I inherited my paper route, I think I got that at 13. So I inherited my paper route. I had a couple of different pieces of that. I had, hey, I've already got an existing base of clients I'm throwing newspapers at. There's a lot of houses in my neighborhood that aren't getting the newspaper. I had to go out and sell. So at 13, I was knocking on doors trying to talk people into buying the Idaho Statesman. And there was reasons, and back then I was crafting my message on how to talk to people and how to sell and how to emotionally tie them into something. And, I actually, I used to win, this is crazy. I used to win, what the heck did they call them? Contests. The Idaho Statesman had contests on who sold the most subscriptions over a period. So it was either a 30-day or a 90-day sales period. So you'd run these promotions. These were I'm competing with adults. I'm competing with other kids, and you had to be one of the top performers. And at the end of the contest, you won this or you won that, or you won trips down to, I remember at, how old was that, 14? 14, I won my first trip to Lagoon. So I went down to Lagoon, this amusement park in Utah. I was on a bus that had like 50 people on it. So for all of Idaho, there were 50 of us on this bus that won trips down to Lagoon. So you got the trip, you got this, I don't know if it was a day trip or you stayed the night, and you got some spending cash. And I think in the 5 years I was a paper boy for the Statesman, I probably went on 4 Lagoon trips because I was always winning the awards for most new clients. I mean, so back at 12 or 13, I was learning how to sell. Fast forward to today, I have always figured out a way to craft a message and to sell something. So like you just mentioned, there's some big names of some folks I'm connected with now. And the reason why I think is because, one, I may be ADD and speak my mind, but I'm also genuine. I'm honest. I'm an open book. And I built relationships with people because I was honest with them. I'm like, hey, man, I need your help. And this is where I'm at. I've spent a ton of money on stuff. I'm not learning squadoosh on any of this crap. But I need help. And in the process of, I've talked to a lot of people. I've connected with a lot of people. I'd mentioned before, my very first connection really in the ClickFunnels space was Blake Newbar. So you got a guy who's made over 10 million himself. You've got a guy that's made millions for other people. He's turned, not only is he a 2 Comma Club winner, he's like number 1 or number 2 in the ClickFunnels marketplace. So if you go in and shop for funnels, Blake is the number 1 or the number 2 sold funnel out there. And that's I hate to say it, but that's not the bread and butter of his business. The bread and butter of his business is building $75,000, $150,000 funnels for people and taking margin on the revenue. So this guy is a mini Russell Brunson. He really is. I mean, if you look at Russell, probably the top 3 in that space, Blake's one of them. So, this guy is a legend in there. And the biggest thing that I got out of this was I connected with him when I bought a funnel, and he walked me through all the intricacies of it and turned on his computer and fired up a Zoom video. Hey, Kev, let me show you how to do this. I'm like, man, you don't got to do that. He's like, I'm going to do it for you. He turned it on. He walked me through the video. What else can I show you while you're here? So you got this guy that's making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in the 2 years he's been with ClickFunnels. In 2 years, this kid's made over 10 million bucks, and he's getting ready to like 10X that. He's got some crazy stuff going on. So I connected with Blake, and in the process of connecting with Blake, the guy he's all heart. He's an honest, amazing guy that's given me a ton of help. He's never asked me for a dime. In fact, I shouldn't say this. He's given me a couple of his funnels free. So he's sent me these top producing funnels. He's like, hey, dude, I want you to pay for that. I'm just going to give it to you. I'm like, oh my gosh, you do not have to share that funnel with me. But he has. So he's done some really amazing things for me in 6 months. But I learned from Blake that, it's not all about revenue generation. In the end of the day, it's about helping people. And it truly is. This guy is the most loving person out there, and he truly gives back. And so, when I came up with the idea for the academy, I knew that the first person, and he was the first person I talked to. The first person I wanted in the academy was Blake. The reason why is I know Blake's heart. I know Blake is a good man. He's going to give freely of himself to people. I mean, eventually somewhere down the road, he has to pay some bills, and I think he's probably doing okay at paying the bills right now. But that being said, he gives freely of himself, and you see it with everybody. I see him all the time in the ClickFunnels group, provide nuggets of knowledge and help to people that, someone else is trying to sell them. It's funny. You'll see threads. I'll see threads of buy this. I'll message you right now. Yeah, I can do that for you. Blah, 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 blah. And then you see him put the answer to it all right in the funnel. I mean, right in the post. Hey, this is what you need to do. And, blah, 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 and you're good right there. And I'm like, okay, that's the kind of guy that I want to partner with. And in the process of, I met other people that have the same giving hearts. They give so much of themselves. Sure, it comes back to them. You know how it works. Was it the laws of reciprocity, or however did I say that right? Reciprocity? I think that's what it is. But, as you give, it comes back. It's that good energy that you put out there. So yeah, I mean, there are people that truly do have their heart in the right place, and they give freely of themselves, but it comes back to them, and it comes back to them in folds because they are so giving in that way. You can actually see from some of these coaches, and this, they talk a big story, they don't deliver. So their talk and their walk are not the same thing. So at any rate, did I even answer your question? I think I just babbled. What was the question?
You're awesome.
I get off on a tangent. Next thing I know, I'm out there.
I'll probably white out his last name. Don't everybody flood Blake. But
yeah, Blake. We'll refer to him as Blake.
Blake.
You know
Um,
what's funny is Blake will probably answer everybody's questions.
he
He's
probably would.
that amazing a guy.
I think you actually answered it in a roundabout sort of way. We were laughing before I hit record that I think we both have the shiny object syndrome, and so we get
Absolutely.
going and we go. And I think if you're like that, I think it's an asset. They try to tell you it's not in school, but I think really it is. Now, if you don't have it,
Right.
I'm sorry you don't have our superpower. But
Right. Well, look at all the creatives out there. There's so many creative people out there. They have shiny object syndrome.
right.
You know, so they test fail. Like you just said, afraid to launch. You got to launch. You got to launch, and you got to let your market tell you that's not going to work, or this will work. But you got to find out it's not going to work early, so you can correct it and relaunch, and correct it and relaunch. But you got to launch. I mean, I took almost 90 days to build my first mentor course. 90 days to figure out I don't want to sell my mentor course, because the first person I sold it to bought my course and they couldn't afford my course, but they liquidated what they had to spend $3,000 on a course. And I instantly knew I can't do that to people. I cannot get people. You know, here's the crazy thing that I learned this early on. US dollars versus other countries are much different. And if you look at it comparatively, the cost of living here versus the cost of living in a Pakistan or India. But if you look at the people that make up the audience within a lot of these groups, it's very culturally diverse. So a $997 course to me might be, okay, $997. Is it worth it? $997 to somebody in Pakistan is their annual income. So you've got somebody who's willing, I mean, they're trying to find a way to spend their entire year's worth of income on a course. And if that course is by some BS artist who is going to tell you, don't message me, put your questions in the group and forget all about you once you pay the $997, what happens to that person? They just spent a year's worth of their income. So that was where the idea, another part of the idea came around for the Academy, is we wanted it affordable so that other people in other communities that are trying to create and launch their dream can afford to. So this is another idea behind the Academy, was to help more people out in that aspect.
I love kind of the message of everything we were talking about before we went live, and whatever is just honesty. And I think it is such there's so many people out there. I guess there's not so many, but it's easy to find people. I know when I first jumped in, it was like, you start researching stuff and all of a sudden your whole newsfeed is filled with what you're researching for. And it's really easy, first off, to get discouraged because it's like, crud, my idea, it's already been done, which I don't think that's the case. And secondly, you run into so many people, it's so hard to distinguish who should you be listening to, who shouldn't you be listening to, because sometimes it's almost that chicken or the egg, because sometimes I'll hear, well, don't talk to somebody until they've made $10 million, and it's like, well, you got to start somewhere. Just because you haven't made 10 million doesn't mean that what you're offering isn't good enough or is shouldn't be bought. So do you have any tips in terms of how do you decide who to reach out to? I know that there's a lot of variables in there, because sometimes you don't know until you actually push go. Right. Have you found a common theme, or
Well, what's funny is I mentioned the guy that I bought the course from earlier. $1,000 for his course. He's going to help me grow my Facebook social media group. Blah blah blah. Here we go. We launch. I bought it. 10 days into this, I'm asking for my money back, because not only was I unable to meet his metrics, it is because of the limitations that were put on me, because they failed to deliver on their message. Well, so I out him socially in his group, his 70,000 member Facebook group. I out him. I out him in another way with another Facebook group that I created. But in the process of, the crazy thing was, I thought I was the only one that had issues with this guy. When I put it out, when I blasted him in his own Facebook group, so many people jumped in and they all admitted they had the same issues. I started getting messages from people saying, you know what? We had the same problem. Absolute same problem. So I think you asked, how do you get there? It's really hard to weed out who the real genuine people are and who the experts are. But I think, as you get deeper and further into this, you can start to weed those people out just by interaction. You can tell whose heart's in the right place and who's genuine and who will actually communicate with you and who will spend time with you, versus the guy that's like, hey, buy my course. and it'll tell you everything. It's got everything you need in it. And it's 100% automated when you get in there. And I've got questions. Don't message me. Well, okay, message them. Message them all right out of the gate. Start asking them questions and see if they want to engage with you. See if they're willing to give you. I mean, Blake right out of the gate for a $147 funnel. He answered a ton of questions for me long before he ever spent $147 on one of his funnels. But I knew that guy, I wanted to always help. He would always help me. I would always help him. But I mean, you really got to kick a lot of tires before you find the right vehicle, that you want to drive. And so for me, I think a lot of the lessons have been learned just by interaction. You can see who is preying on others. They may not deliberately put that they're preying on others, but you can tell who's preying on others and taking advantage of people, things along that lines. And then you can tell who's the people that have their hearts in the right places and really want to help people. You talked about it. I mean, everybody I talk to thinks I've got this amazing story and I've always been extremely wealthy and done really well for myself and blah, blah, blah. I've had the lows. I've had a lot of the lows, I don't go into a lot of detail about it, but I'm a kid who was not set up for success out of the gate. I came from my stepdad raised me, Air Force retired. We retired to here in Boise, Idaho. And in the process of his retirement, his passion was food. There's not a lot of money in being a cook, but that was his passion. So he followed his heart after he retired, and his desire to be a chef, he became a manager at Denny's. So he managed at Denny's where he really couldn't use his chef skills, but he got to work in food. So here's a guy that was not making a lot of money. My pops, my mom, 5 boys, all being raised together. We didn't have a lot of money. I'll tell you right now, I know we were poor. We weren't like destitute. Bills were paid, but I didn't have an extensive closet. I had 2 pairs of jeans. I had, the same shoes. I had 4 or 5 different shirts I wore all school year long. So we didn't have a lot of money. And this is kind of the background that I grew up in. Add in some things that I typically don't talk about, but I'll bring it up. I grew up in a very abusive household. It wasn't my pops. It was my mom. So my mom was raised in a Catholic convent in England. That military, it's not military, it's military-ish. That life that she grew up in a convent, being raised by priests and nuns, she brought into her family life. And that's how she raised us boys. So it was a very, it was a very abusive life growing up, physically, emotionally, verbally. So you take all that, you factor in a lot of other things, and then you throw a kid out at the age of, I graduated high school at 17. So you throw a kid out at 17 into the real world. He's got to fight and defend and figure out his own way. And in doing so, and I tell people about this all the time. As a kid, I've got a backpack that's filled with everything I dealt with as a kid. So that backpack went on me, and I've carried that backpack with me through my entire life. I've still yet to find a place to put my backpack because I don't go talk to others. I don't go to counselors. I think everybody's a kook. I'm a kook, but I think everybody else is a kook. So I don't go to counselors. I don't do any of that stuff. But I still have that backpack on me. So I carried that life with me, or my childhood with me in my backpack through life, which includes, the trauma from being, how deep do I want to go on this? So sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, verbally abused. I carry all that in a backpack. I've carried that as a child all the way through life. I've talked about it openly recently, that as a teen, I was very suicidal. I mean, I was dealing with life at home. And then you take a kid who in Idaho in the 70s, late 70s, going to school, 70s, 80s. It's a very white community. My pops was black. So I grew up a black kid here. Even though I was a white kid, I grew up in a black family. So I grew up in a very racially abusive environment with kids at school. I was picked on. I was bullied. I was beat up. I mean, there was a lot that went on being little old me growing up through school. I graduated high school, took all that with me, threw it in a backpack, and I've carried it my entire life with me. One day I'll probably find a place for it. For now, I still got that backpack. So I've got all these different things that I'm carrying through life with me right now. And so I tell people, I've always fought because I've always been a fighter. I've had to fight. It was the only way I survived my childhood, was fighting to get out of there. So I've got all this craziness from my life. I got through it. But the biggest thing I still deal with to today, which is, it's hard for me to admit, is I still deal with thoughts of suicide. So I have carried this from my teenage years all the way through to the man that I am today, knowing that at some point, or thinking that at some point I was going to take my life. And it's stuff that I still process. So you throw all that into the mix of trying to figure out your way in a professional world. There's a lot of craziness that goes on inside this head. So I've fought in a lot of different ways to survive, to create, to evolve. And so that's why I've always hustled. I've connected with in a lot of ways. Like I mentioned before, I learned how to sell when I was 12 on the paper outside. And I needed to. I wanted that new pair of hash jeans or Levi's. And the only way I was going to get a new pair of Levi's is I had to make that money myself. So I went out and sold and added more people on my paper out, and won contests, won cash awards. And so I learned how to sell out of necessity because I didn't want to be the one kid in school who wasn't wearing the cool pair of jeans or to have the Adidas or whatever it was back then, or the Nikes. So, that kid became an adult, and I've carried that through life. And when it comes to selling and connecting and building something, I've always known how to do it because I've always known maybe I'm not the right guy for this or for that piece of it, but I'll find the right guy or the gal, the right person to bring into that mix. And cohesively together, we've got something that we can sell. And I think that's how I've got to where I am today, is by connecting the parts and finding the right people. Does that make sense?
It does. I appreciate your sharing your story. I think it's hard for people to share stories.
Right.
Because it's parts of them that they don't want to share. It's like,
you don't share because you don't want to be judged. You don't want people judging you for your story. But if I look at it, in fact, just bringing it up right there, I know what happened to me as a kid. I've got all these different things that happened to me as a kid. But I think the value in that is I'm not alone. There are a lot of kids, there are a lot of adults out there that have dealt with their own traumas, their own whatevers they might be. It may not be the exact same thing as mine. It may be worse than mine, but whatever it might be, everybody has their own story to tell. They've got their own thing that's affected them in this life. And some have found a place for it. Some carry it. But I think I also have to admit that in part of sharing this story is I was a kid. I was a kid when it happened to me. So, if I made a dumb decision as an adult and it affected me adversely, well, I'm an adult. I should know better. But as a kid, you have no control over what's going on. You really don't. And who can you talk to? Who can you tell? At 12 years old, I was stuck in counseling because I was the issue. I had to go see a counselor at 12 because I was the problem. Fast forward to today, I know I was not the problem. I was a 9-year-old kid to a 12-year-old kid that was being abused in the house, and I'm acting up. Well, okay, how am I supposed to? How am I supposed to act to these situations? And this is my way of fighting and surviving. And, so at any rate, to make a long story short, like you just said, it's hard to admit these things, especially publicly. Hell, you throw something out on the internet, everybody can see it now. And but the beauty of it is that I know I'm not alone in this, and I know that there are so many other people that struggle with things. And if my story can help just one person, hear that all the time. If I can just help one person, but if I can help one person decide that they want to make it to my age, that they don't want to kill themselves, that they can find a way to get here, you're going to struggle with a lot of stuff along the way. You're going to face moments in your life, the peaks and the valleys. You're going to face valleys, and it's in those valleys that are your dark moments that you're like, what? How am I going to get through this? But if they can get through that, if they can get to a point, like I said, God dang it, I have sat with a gun in my hands knowing I was killing myself. And the only thing that stopped me from doing it was I knew I had my 2 dogs at home, and I knew my kids would not take care of my dogs. Where are my dogs going to go? And the thing that stopped me that day from doing it, this is a couple of years ago, the thing that stopped me that day from doing it was what's going to happen to my dogs. And here I am today because of 2 little Yorkies. People laugh, oh, you got Yorkies? I'm like, I don't think you understand what those Yorkies have done for me. They were my kids' dogs. They became my dogs. My daughter's moved out, the dog's here. My son's moving out, the dog's here. So those 2 dogs are my dogs, but those 2 dogs have saved my life. So there's no way I'm getting rid of them. I'm just not. And they're the reason that I'm here today. But in telling my story, if I can connect with one person who is struggling, and that's the other thing too, is I love having conversations with people. I want to know. So, anybody who wants to can reach out to me and I'll talk with them. I will. I've dealt with a lot in my life. you throw in my childhood, you throw in the Marine Corps, you throw in other things that have happened in my life. I've got a lot of crazy crap that's happened to me. And for some reason, I'm still around. I don't know why. Because I've sat there with a gun in my lap knowing I'm done. And I don't know why I've gotten to the point that I'm at today. But I know that what I think it is I think I've got a story that I can share with people. And I think my story, and I'm now on the board for this mental health, this mental illness nonprofit called Greater. You're greater than your highs and your lows. You're meant for something bigger. My story, I think, can be told to kids. I want to speak to kids. I want to speak to a kid that I know that I don't know. We don't know who's struggling at school. You really don't. But I want to speak to those kids, and I hope that I can connect with one of them so that they know that I've gone through all this in my life and I made it. I mean, I'm old. I'm 52 years old. I made it to 52, but it was a lot of hard work. There was a lot of times I didn't want to make it to 21, to 30, to 40 years old, to 52. I will tell you that in the last year, I have thought about suicide. I didn't want to make it here, but I did. And there's a reason why. And so my why now, I think, is all built around Greater and helping people understand you have a purpose in this world. Don't let what's affecting you now stop you from getting to where you're going to be one day as an amazing adult with an amazing story, an amazing mission to help make this world a better place. So at any rate, there I go off on another tangent.
I think your story, I think it is inspiring. And I think everybody has a story. I think sometimes you either feel like you have to be at the bottom of the bottom to work right. Sharing your story, which honestly, to be at the bottom of the bottom is the hardest place to ever share your story. Or, if I haven't gone through all those lows, you've gone through lows. I mean, everybody goes through lows, right. Or my low isn't good enough. But I think one of the things that you said that really hit too. Well, first of all, your superpower is your story. Right. That's what makes you. And get comfortable, sharing stuff. Because I know for a long time I fought that too. It was like, I don't want anybody to know the right. crap that happened. That's not the good part, right. The good part's to come. But right. I think that one of my favorite things about the story that you just shared is that you're still carrying that backpack. And that's not my favorite part, because I wish you weren't. But I think so many people feel like there's too much. I mean, I've got so much in my backpack. I can't be who I want to be. Or right. As soon as I can dump this part, then I can be. And so I really love that. Like I said, I hate that you're still carrying that backpack, because that backpack didn't stop you. Right. You kept going. And someday when, because I think society has almost made it like, you don't want anybody to know. It's like right. Facebook.
Well, there's a lot of shame behind it. There's a lot of shame. There really is. I mean, anybody who's had anything happen to them in any fashion, whether it's this or that or all this, to be honest with you, there's probably kids that have dealt with a lot more than I have. And, and mine was almost daily abuse. It was fear of knowing that our mother was coming home from work, and she had 3 or 4 or 5 hours with us before my pops got home. So she had 3 or 4 hours to do her thing, which, and so anyway, there was always that fear. Like you said, I think my backpack has been my biggest burden through my entire life, because my backpack has affected me in a lot of ways. I'm a hard person to love. I'm an easy person to love, but I'm a hard person to love, because I've got the biggest wall in the world and I don't let people in. I really don't. And when I finally let my wall down and I let someone in, this is on the, the emotional connection level, because I really don't think I've actually truly ever loved anybody the way someone deserves to be loved. But the biggest part of that is in my backpack and my wall is it's been a huge burden in that aspect, because for me to connect with somebody on an emotional level, it's tough. So that's been my biggest burden, but I think it's also been a blessing, because I also know what I've carried with me and how I got to where I am today, and how, like I mentioned, I did not take my life at certain points. And I don't know, looking back, I don't know what stopped me from not doing it. Hell, I don't know. Tomorrow may be a different day. I hate to say that, but that's the world that I live in. So for me, my backpack has been a burden, but it's been a blessing as well, because now I can go out and I can talk to people that have their own version of a backpack and whatever they're carrying with them, and let them know that, don't let that define you. You're going to get to a point in your life, and you're going to look back one day and say, wow, I made it. I survived this. I survived that kid at school that always bullied me. mean, there were several kids that bullied me in school. I survived them. I mean, I don't know where they are today. I don't know what's going on in their lives, but I know that I made it to today. And what I dealt with then made me stronger. It made me realize that, no matter what's happening to me, I can survive it. And that includes the financial peaks, the financial lows. I mean, I've been through it all. I've been through the highest of highs financially, making that $500,000 a year, to the lowest of lows where I'm like, crap, how am I going to pay the power bill? I mean, I've been through all of this. But I know at the end of the day, I've seen tomorrow. I've made it through today. I've seen tomorrow. And I think my message is to help people understand you can find your way in this world. You truly can. Whether that's, just life itself, surviving it, whether that's financially, whether that's your career choice. I think my biggest passion for me is I have a lot of ideas. I do. There's a ton of ideas still in here on things I'd love to launch, things I'd like to help. But I think I can speak to people on their dream and help them launch their dream because I've been there. I've walked through it all. I've been through the lowest of lows. I'm working my side hustles. And in doing so, one of those side hustles has become a main focus. And so I've got that piece, and I think for them, a lot of people get so caught up in what's going on in their world, their life, that they don't see the end game. They don't see what's waiting for them down the road because they're so involved in what's going on and what's affecting them right now today. Today is not your tomorrow. Today doesn't have to be your tomorrow. Today is your today. Focus on that one thing like you just talked about. Focus on one thing. It's going to get you to your tomorrow, your next week, your next month. A year from now could be a whole lot different than today, but to get to a year from now, you got to figure out what you want to do today and launch it. You absolutely have to.
Kevin, I think that was phenomenal. If you guys have not connected with Kevin, if you don't know who Kevin Stephen is,
he's nuts.
He's not nuts, but he's so inspiring. And I guess to sum it up, if you had one word, I don't even know if I want to though, because that was such a great ending. If you had if you could kind of sum up everything that you've learned over this long journey, which I know is almost an impossible task, if you could just give one piece of advice, what would it be?
Ooh, wow. I was going to say survive. Don't survive. Survive. Get through it. But kick ass. Get out there and kick ass. Don't let someone else tell you, or don't let someone else define you. Don't let someone else tell you that you can or you can't. You decide that yourself. You have to find that fire within. You find help. Find help wherever it may be, whether it's personally, whether it's professionally. You can find all sorts of resources to help you. But you yourself, you are bigger than what anybody else thinks of you. If I really look back at all the things I was told growing up, if I listened to what everybody told me growing up, I never would have saw 21. I never would have saw 30 or 40 or 50 years old. You have to be able to put all that babble that's coming in. You have to be able to put that behind you. You have to filter it out, and you have to focus on who you are and what you really want. It truly is. It's in the grand scheme of things, who really matters? Who matters in that grand scheme? Family, yes, family matters. But, if I listened to my family, I never would have got to where I am today. If I honestly believed what my mother told me my entire life, I never would have got to today. So you've got to be able to filter out all that noise, all that babble, and you've got to be able to focus on who you are, what's your core, and what you want to do in this life. In this life, there's a lot of different things that happen. But you have to be able to focus on that, and you have to focus. You have to launch your dream. What's your dream? I tell people all the time. I'm like, what is your dream? What drives you? Go do that. Don't listen to others.
That was super, super, super awesome. Where do you want him to go follow you?
I've got a page. Kevin Stephen is my personal, and I've got Kevin Stephen, which is a public page. So I've got that page. They can follow me there. We've got Side Hustle Republic. We have a page for that as well. And I'm thinking about a podcast. It's just another one of those shiny objects. I created a YouTube channel. I think I'm gonna start on YouTube, creating videos, and I can post to YouTube the video as well as an audio version on a podcast. So I might. I'm still trying to figure out what it is I want to do in this life.
And that's okay because you started. You got to
Yeah.
start till to figure
You
it
gotta
out.
start. You really do.
Are you tired of bugging your family and friends and bumping into the same people all over social media trying to pitch your opportunity? If so, grab your team members and go to www.marketingexplosion.org and pick up your free copy of MLM Momentum. It's going to teach you how to get people coming to you and applying for your opportunity. It's also going to teach you how to get paid for prospecting. See you soon.